and welcome to today's Conference Tracker Tech Tuesday. Today we'll be going over managing and generating invoices. So today's presenters will be myself, Chad Blodgett, the Business Development Manager here at Engineerica Systems, as well as Garrett Effers, who is your Software Support Representative, which you probably have worked with in the past. And so a couple of quick announcements before we get into today's Tech Tuesday. We do these Tech Tuesdays every third Tuesday at 1 Eastern. These Tech Tuesdays, we go over Conference Tracker announcements. So this could include things that are new in Conference Tracker, upcoming updates. It also includes our Tech Talk portion, which today is going to be generating invoices. And then we do have a live Q&A session at the end. We also have started a new user spotlight, which we're going to be having our second user spotlight joining us for today's Tech Tuesday as well. Just let everyone know that today's Tech Tuesday is going to be recorded. So we're going to be sending out the recording to everyone who registered probably tomorrow, whenever it's available. So you can watch it again, or you can send it to anyone who wasn't able to make it to today's webinar. You may have noticed that you are muted, and this is just to kind of keep the noise down to a minimum. But if you do have any questions as we're going through today's webinar, please feel free to put your question in the question section. The way you do that is if you click on that little orange or red arrow, click the arrow next to questions, you'll be able to type your question in there. And then at the end of today's webinar, we'll be answering your questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Garrett Effers, who's going to be taking us through our presentation of generating and doing invoices.
Perfect, and thank you as always for such a wonderful introduction, Chad. Just verify for me that you can see my screen. Perfect. Okay, so today's topic, of course, is invoices, right? Distributing, managing, generating invoices. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, where are these invoices used? Now, I know in the past, and for some of our older clients, you may remember this, the invoices were only generated if the registrant selected the actual pay by invoice option in registration. Well, with our most recent 8.1 update to Conference Tracker, it has now been made so that invoices are generated for all payment methods. Regardless of which method they pick, they'll be provided with an invoice as a form of a receipt for their registration. Now, of course, these invoices can be customized based on the role, whether they're registering as an exhibitor or an attendee, and you can design those differently as well in the system. So in order to see and start your invoice process, right, and get all those created, the first thing we have to do is enable the view. And these can be found at Conference Setup, where we have a lot of the visibility toggles for invoices, badges, certificates, and CEU reports. You're going to go to Conference Setup, and you're going to hit the bottom of that page and toggle that on. Now, of course, to create your actual invoice, we're going to be navigating to the actual invoices section of the side menu and going to invoices, design invoices, and then the blue create button that you're going to see there on the front page. And that's going to open up the designer that we're seeing here. We do have some good base designs in the system for you to take advantage of. Of course, you can import your own background image and customize that as well. Now, when you load up the invoices section and you click that design invoices button, like we were talking about on the earlier slide, you're going to be welcomed to this menu where it lists all the invoice designs that you've created. And as you can see there, we have a 3 dots menu option where you can go step in straight to the design and skip the naming description process. As well, you can copy the design. So if you have your attendee invoice like you see here in this example, and you wanted to generate that paid in full invoice, you could just copy that design, change a couple of your text fields, and you're good to go. All that beginning work you did on that first invoice has already been done for you. Now, of course, in that menu as well, you're also seeing print and email. If you select these options directly from that invoice, it's going to take you to the print or email invoice screen with that invoice design preloaded in your options for you. So it's one less choice that you have to make. Now, of course, the most important part of your invoices is setting your defaults, especially if you're using different invoices throughout your event. So to do that, when you're looking at that invoice page that we were seeing earlier at Invoices, Design Invoices, there's going to be a Set Defaults button there next to the Create button. And that's going to lead you to this screen that you're seeing here. And as you can see, you would click the little drop-down arrow and select the design that you want to set as the default for that role. So depending on what role they have in the system will depend on what design they get generated. Now, let's say you've already sent out your first round of invoices, or the people have already come through registration and they've selected the invoice option, but it's been a couple weeks and we want to remind people that they have open invoices that need to be paid. And this is where that email invoices function really comes in and helps. So when you come into that menu, we're going to go invoices and then email invoices. And this is meant for you to be able to distribute them all at once, of course, or to specific people. And it's going to generate the box that you're seeing there, where at the top you're going to select the invoice design that you want to print, and then you're going to select the users with roles. So if you want to send to everybody, you would load it up like you're seeing there on screen, or of course you can just do the attendees or just do the exhibitors. I do want to point out that as you're going through your exhibitor registration, you may be giving out different roles, exhibitor admin and exhibitor rep. So when you're emailing your invoices, you're going to want to make sure that you're selecting both exhibitor roles and not just one or the other. And the specific invoices works the same. You can select specific invoiced people or just keep tagging on all the people in that company in the list. Now that you've sent your invoices, how can we check on these invoices in a quick, fashionable way? Well, along in that 8.1 CT update that I was talking about earlier, we also added a couple exports so that you as the organizers can track your invoices a little more quickly, and you can have a list that you can check off as you're going through and doing your preparations for your event. Now, of course, with all the other exports in the system, those are going to be located at Advanced Options, Export Data. And there's two different invoices that I'll show you when we check out the actual software, and they're located near the bottom of that list as attendee invoices and exhibitor invoices separately. And of course, like all of our exports, it is available in CSV, HTML, and the 2007-2010 version of Excel. So with that being said, let's go ahead and we're going to jump into Conference Tracker, and we're actually going to take a look at the invoices from the organizer perspective. So what we're looking at here is going to be our demo account on the Engineerica side. And just once more, I'm going to show you how you enable that invoices menu visibility, right? So we're going to go to Conference, Setup, and all the way down at the bottom of this page, you're going to see your other features visibility. And this is where you're going to get those toggles as to whether or not you get to see these options in the menu. Now, it doesn't disable the option. The option is still there. It's just hiding the visibility from your menu. So if your event decides that you're only doing certificates or only doing CEU reports, you don't need to see the other one in your menu. So of course, we're going to make sure that our invoices are on, and we're going to go ahead and save those changes. Now navigating to the actual invoices section, we're going invoices, design invoices, and you can see the different examples that we have here, but we're going to create a new one. So of course, the first thing that the system asks for as a requirement is a name for the invoice. We have to have something. Of course, you have the description here as well. If you want to fill this out, if you have additional administrators who are logging into the system, you can tell them, oh, this is the paid in full invoice for attendees or the paid in full for exhibitors. We're going to go ahead and hit save and design, and that's going to bring us to our built-in designers and the different templates that we have available in CT. So we're just going to select this one just because I like the color of it. And of course, you can see here how it's already pre-filled with a bunch of the things that you need for an invoice. It gives you your invoice number, order number fields, the date keywords, and it pulls their keywords from their registration. So the company, the address, the city, state, and zip. There is a remit to item an image item that comes through on your default templates that of course you may need to replace if you have your own remit to image, or of course you can just fill this information out in a text box just by clicking the text field and dragging that into view. So of course, the most important parts here is going to be your logo. This is going to automatically pull from whatever you guys have set in the system. So the big things to change here, of course, is going to be the address and organization name and your remit to. The table will fill itself in. And of course, if you want to change your background image. Now, a couple things that I want to point out while we're on this designer that came in with a new update that maybe our older clients don't know about and our new customers would be happy to know exist. When you go into a text field, for instance, we're going to click the organization name. Sometimes when your attendees or exhibitors come through registration, they fill out their form in all caps or all lowercase. And sometimes that can make your badges and your invoices look a little weird compared to the way that you designed them to look. So to mitigate this, we have a couple new features here. We have the text wrap for your bigger names. So you can set it to shrink to fit size depending on the size of the field. As well, we have the text case, and this goes into the issue that I was talking about earlier. You have default, proper, upper, and lower, so that you can set the way that that text looks regardless of what they put in the system. Of course, upper and lower are kind of self-explanatory. Default case is going to be whatever they typed in registration. So if they typed every other case, uppercase or lowercase, that's how it's going to look. Of course, proper case is the nice one here. This is what's going to make it look the proper way, exactly what you're seeing here. So the first letter is capitalized and the rest is lowercase. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to say this invoice is finalized and we're going to save changes here. Now we see this demo invoice and I want to print this out. I want to see what this invoice looks like. So from that 3 dots menu, we have that print option, and you can see what I was talking about when it automatically loads that design in, regardless of the other designs that I have in the system. So of course, for Ed, this is the users with roles that we were seeing. We're printing the demo invoice for every user with the role of attendee and exhibitor. Like I said, be sure to select both roles for your exhibitors, or you may be missing invoices. And then you would select the generate button and it's going to generate your PDF here. And the same goes for the email invoices. You're going to make these choices here and then you're going to generate. And once you generate, this will take a second, but once you generate the image and the actual PDF for your attendees or your exhibitors, that's when you're going to see the email template opens up and allows you to customize what this email is going to look like. Of course, you have the keywords name, so it's unique to your attendee, and we also have the link for the invoice being sent. Of course, the reply tos here are just the system defaults. If you have something that you would rather input here and receive those replies at a different address, you're more than welcome to do that. Now, of course, the most important part, we've talked about creating our invoices, we've talked about distributing our invoices, but how do the attendees actually receive these invoices? So as they go through registration, the system's going to load the invoice default that's been set. So we're going to come into design invoices, set defaults, and we're going to set my attendee default to that demo invoice that we just created. Now, when the attendees go through registration, they're going to see a different default invoice than what the exhibitors will see. And that's how you can set that up in advance. But now let's go to the very end of your event or right before your event. You've sent out all these invoices, your registration's closed. How do I check on these invoices? Now, of course, you can see in your attendee registration and your exhibitor registration the different pending registrations that you have, and it will tell you the invoice number that gets generated for each registration. You can see 4, 6, 11, 13. So when we go into the exports here, and that's located at advanced options, export data, at the very bottom of this page, we have the attendee invoices sent and the exhibitor invoices sent exports. And those are free to download, of course, to make a quick visual of the invoices that you've sent, who they've been sent for, and the associated companies, times, and amounts, as well as the status of their registration. Were they accepted? Did they pay the invoice and they were accepted into the system? Are they pending, or were they simply just invoiced? So of course, with that about covers all of our invoice presentation for today's CT Tech Tuesday.